So the next step is, in getting this head off, I have to get this distributor off. So one thing you'll notice is this is not the original distributor. When I bought this car, there were a lot of things that weren't original. It works fine, so I'm just gonna keep it on there for now. You know, we'll see later on, but I've driven several miles with this on and it works fine. So to get the distributor head off, the distributor off the head, there's a few things you got to do. This cable here, this is a hollow cable that goes to the ignition from your dash from your key. The ignition cable here, this screws in clockwise to the base of your distributor. So the way to get that out, that's tricky, is, and if you have, like, do I have the nut here? Luckily I don't have that. There's a, well, I'll skip that part for now. So you may need to use a set of pliers to turn it counterclockwise to unscrew it out. So you would unscrew this out and this whole thing will just turn. It should just spin. So that's one thing to get the distributor out. The other thing here, and then the other thing I was going to tell you is there's a screw right here. So this screw below the distributor base, and this doesn't even look like a stock screw. I may have to put an original one back in there, we'll see. But anyway, we unscrew this and then the distributor will just lift off. You'll want to also, you know, if you're more newer to Model A's, you might want to mark your spark plug. If you have this kind of set up, you want to indicate which spark plug wire goes to the distributor. The firing order is 1, 2, 4, 3 on a Model A. That means this is cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4. So when the distributor, that implies that it rotates counterclockwise. So when it fires on this bottom corner here, 1, this goes to 2. That's cylinder 2. Then this actually goes to 4, way in the back here. And then when it rotates around here in the final turn, it fires cylinder 3. So just take a picture of that so you don't mess it up. If you have the original Model A distributor cap on here, you don't have to worry about that because those foil, what are they called? Those little metal strips that connect to the top of the spark plugs. You can't mess those up. They're pretty easy to get the right order. Anyway, let me go ahead and start this. Hopefully it won't be a problem. And I'm probably just going to remove the spark plugs as well while I take everything off. Okay, a tip when you're getting the distributor body off the head of the Model A, what I did was, so when you unscrew everything, and I took all the spark plugs and wires off, it doesn't unscrew, it just lifts in and out of the head. But when you first try to pop it off, it's not going to come that easy, most likely. So what I did was, I used a large flathead screwdriver, and then I used a rag so I wouldn't scratch or damage the surface either of the head or the distributor body. What I did was I just kind of put it in here, and instead of pushing or prying, I just turned the screwdriver this way so that the flathead went from perpendicular to vertical. And that, when I did that, and you could do it on both sides, that seemed to loosen it and popped off. Now I realized some Model A distributors, if they've been sitting for a long time or even rusted, it could be a lot more work to get them out. But they don't screw in, they just slide in. So now I'm taking it out. There should be a shaft in there. So anyway, this is now out and I'm ready to go on to the next step, which I'll record shortly. Okay, I had to retape this part. We are going to put the distributor back into the head. So this is the Model A distributor and it goes right in this hole here. But there's a few things you got to do to prep for this before you get ready. So first thing is, this is the distributor shaft. So this shaft goes in this hole here. It goes all the way down It only goes on one way for this little slot notch in here. So don't worry about putting it on backwards. Although there's a top down, usually if you pull one out, the bottom will be rusted or more oily. That's more on the oil side down there. The top will usually be cleaner and have less oil. So that's usually indicates top bottom. What you want to do is, let me zoom in here. Okay, drop this in and you want to rotate it with a screwdriver. So what I use is just a big flathead screwdriver. You want to get it right on top and you want to move it around. I have to go on this side, I can't see over there. So what you want to do is come up from above, and if you have a big size flathead screwdriver, just keep rotating and you feel it just dropped right in. So at that point, when it drops in, it won't move. So you don't want to screw it in, you just want to move it till it fits the slot. Basically, the shaft goes down to a gear. A gear, I think, is driven off the oil pump. When that's in there, it won't turn. So that's in there flat. So that's the first step. The next step is, and I'll show you what's going to happen here. You'll want to put a little bit of oil in the bottom of the shaft here as well as the top. The way you oil the distributor, if you take your cap off, my model has a tiny little hole right here where that screw is. If you put a few drops of oil in there, that'll oil it at the top. Also, there's this little pull out. Where is it here? This little thing here on the side, you pull this out and you can't see it very well, but there's a hole in there. There you go. See the hole? And you can put a few drops of oil in there and that'll help keep the shaft lubricated. Now, when you're putting this on, this screw, so this little screw here is like a lock, and this locks, this holds, it helps hold the distributor shaft in place. And it goes right in here, and it has a nut on top of it to hold it in place. So you'll screw that in once the distributor's in. So I want to point out that this, make sure I got this in the video, okay. This has like a narrow end on it, and you want to make sure that you see the groove here in this distributor. When you screw it in, it should fit right in that groove right there. Now, what else? So when you put this in, the distributor, another thing to point out, do you see this little round little metal thing right here? This fits into a hole right here on the head, right next to the distributor where the shaft is. I'm going to try to maybe lift the camera to show that. That's the hole right there. Do you see next to the shaft there's a hole? I've already scraped my new paint. Oh no. Oh well. Still looks good. Anyway, let me zoom back in here. Okay, so some tricks to make this go in better. The first thing you want to do is you want to get some light grease, like all-purpose grease. I put grease around this shaft here. Not a lot, just a very light touch around here. And if you can see a little bit of the red tacky grease here, I put a little bit of grease on this little thing here to help it slide in the head. This is actually a new head, and you know, things are a little tight on something new that's just been machined. And when you put, so you want this little dot here to line up in the back. So when you put this in, so it slides in. Now, remember, you want to get the shaft, you want to line up, let me tell you one more thing. Do you see that little in there? This has to line up with the top of the shaft. The way you get that to line up, first you drop this in. Okay, and then what I do as a trick is you can rotate the top of this, I forget what that's called
on the top of the distributor. But anyway, you can rotate it with your hand. And you also want to line up that hole. So I'm looking in the back here. So what you'll do is you'll turn, and when I turn it, you should see it like drop in once it catches. So let me, there. Do you see that dropped in? Now, it's not all the way in yet because I have to, I just pulled it out. There. Now, it looks like it's on, and at that point, you would put the lock screw in here. So at that point, you would screw this in, put it tight, put the nut on top of it, that will hold it in place. But it's not quite on there yet. You actually have to, now I'm going to take the camera off here. What you have to do, let's go around. So right in there, oh, let me see if I can focus this. Right, oh, I had it focused, maybe? No? Okay, sort of focus. So right there, you have to fit that on. And what I've done is, if you don't press that in all the way, the groove on the other side is not going to line up with that lock screw. So what I'm going to do is, I've tried a little bit, you want to put some protection on here and get a hammer very lightly. You don't want to dent this or anything, but you need to like press this down so it'll go completely over into that hole there. And then at that point, the distributor is like flat on your head, and you can put that tightening screw and it should fit. So make sure you do this part in the back. Notice this lines up. This is the ignition cable. So also for this, you know, that helps you line up. So when you put the ignition cable in here later, which I'll do like that, and you screw that in, that'll all line up correctly. So not rocket science, but there are little tricks. Again, the grease helps. Rotating this little thing to match it up helps. And, you know, just keep trying. Let me, this is a little bit. And then on this side, what you'll do is you'll want to poke your eye. Well, you can't, well, maybe you can see in there. That groove needs to, it's a little high. So for this to match up in there, to fit in that groove, the distributor's got to come down a little bit more, which I will do that, and then you're done.